Next segment, the other, the number two tragic, horrible thing that happened over the weekend was at Bondi Beach in Australia. So we had two apparently radicalized Muslims took long guns where they were celebrating the first night of Hanukkah and started shooting. This is from the New York Times report. Gunman father-son pair, 50 and 24 years old. I guess the family that slays together stays together. That was probably tasteless, but geez. The older one was shot and killed. 14 dead at the scene. Two other victims, including a 10-year-old girl who had been taken to hospitals, died there. 10 minutes of gunfire. And we'll show you some video of it. There's one guy who's apparently also Muslim, or at least he's kind of Arab-type descent. Not clear on whether he's actually kind of a practicing Muslim or not. Was kind of one of the heroes of this. He charged in unarmed because it's Australia and they want you unarmed. Charged in and stopped this. So let's take a look at this. Warning, graphic content. It's not like a Hollywood movie. So if you're squeamish about blood, there's not much to see there other than to kind of realize that when they're shooting, people are getting wounded and killed. So.
Oh non, gros! Oh, mais il y a son pote, il va se faire tirer dessus. Il est trop con, le mec qui a l'arme.
Note that he kind of put the gun down there once he's got taken away from this guy, and he's far enough away he feels safe. It'd be one thing, maybe he doesn't know how to fire the gun, because this guy certainly deserves getting shot. He got killed by cops anyways, minutes later. But in this sort of situation, you really don't want to be seen holding a gun when the cops arrive. So, reasonably smart move.
Le mec est hyper courageux. Oh. En gros, il a récupéré l'arme du mec qui... Tu sais, il l'avait pris dans sa main, là. Oui, j'ai vu.
That last part is apparently the good guy getting shot in the arm. He was shot by these jerks. Australia famously has big gun control laws. Lots of gun control laws, right? Didn't stop this. Note the proverbial mother insists son is a good boy. Yeah, well, we don't trust you. And obviously not. But that's the sort of thing you get. Saw this online. This is predictable as the day is long. So this was originally up on X in Arabic. This is the translation. Zionist Mossad fingerprints in Sydney. Place, time, and method of the Sydney attack achieved exactly what Netanyahu wants before his visit to America. The Sydney attack will provide a set of images that Netanyahu will carry with him to Miami and distribute to Jewish communities in America and the world. And here lies the secret of the timing. 10 days before Netanyahu's visit to America, a visit whose primary goal will be to exonerate the Zionist entity from genocide and killing of children in Gaza, and from continuing the siege, starvation, and killing despite the ceasefire and the disruption of the transition to the second phase. Netanyahu will use these images to flood the media and social media with the narrative that the Jews are the victims. Now, why would I entertain this bit of BS and even bring it up on this show? I mean, because it should be fairly obvious. We got lots of nutcases in the world. And this is just a nutcase. So why, Matt, why are you bringing up a nutcase? Well, because of this. Palestinian journalist, political analyst, BBC World Correspondent. He used to be the BBC World Correspondent. The British Broadcasting Corporation hired this guy to cover Gaza. Do you think you were getting if you followed BBC and its reporting on Gaza, and this guy is in charge, you think you were getting an accurate picture of what's going on? No way. Yeah, no, it's not. So just so you get an idea of what some of the mainstream reporting out of the Middle East and on, frankly, Islamic terrorism, jihadism, or whatnot is. This is some of the people who are trying to sell lies, and they're employed by what most would consider reputable news media outlets. My third segment today is going to be on idiot politicians. But this idiot politician is more tied to this story today than the other stuff we've got, so I wanted to kind of keep it all together. So our idiot politician today is Adam Kinzinger, the former Republican representative who's now angry at everything, not particularly bright either. He notice how the disarmed Jews couldn't defend themselves. This is Mark Delbridge pointing this out. Would have been less deaths if they could. Yes. You saw these two guys. They're largely not worried about incoming fire. I mean, that guy, before he got charged by the hero, he's not taking cover. He's standing out in the open taking pot shots at people. He's not doing that if people are firing back. And if people are firing back at you, you're not aiming as well because you got to keep your head down. Just the facts of life. So Adam Kinzinger decides to jump in here with his intelligence and wit and brains. So let's assume people could have had a pistol carry. At least one shooter was on a bridge. Now assume he would have had an AR-15, which he didn't. One of these was obviously a bolt-action rifle. I don't think either of these were semi-automatic, really. I think one was bolt-action. I think one was lever action. And those things reload relatively slowly. But again, if you're not worried about anybody shooting at you, take your time. Now, assume he would have had an AR-15, which he would have if no gun control. No chance a pistol defeats that from a distance. I'm all for concealed carry, but let's not be honest here. No, he's not for concealed carry. That's the lip sync. That's the I support the Second Amendment line. He's not. Because you let people conceal carry. There has been one case where I can think of where at least taking pot shots at the shooter, forcing him to keep his head down, forcing him to take more time between shots, which would lead to fewer dead and more time for the police to hopefully respond, would have been the case, and that was the Vegas shooting, where the guy was up in a hotel room firing down on the range. In that case, concealed carry, you're right, has no chance. This case, if people had handguns, if there was a decent number of, I think in most of the United States, about 10% of people carry handguns every day, or at least often. Get CCWs. In most states, when you had to get a CCW license, Around 10% of the people got one. Now that the majority of states are constitutional carry, the number may be even higher, because you probably dissuaded some people who could legally carry from carrying in those sorts of situations, because just going through the paperwork is a big pain in the butt. Mark Delbridge responds with the Elisha Dicken case. This was 2022. 3 people were killed in this mall in Greenwood, Indiana. But it would have been a lot more had this 20-year-old, or Dicken, 22-year-old man carrying a handgun, who is he's a good shot, 40 yards away, 10 rounds, hit him 8 times, didn't hit any bystanders, stopped it. Usually the definition of a mass shooting is 4 or more dead, only not including the shooter. Here only 3 innocent people died. Many more would have if not for Dicken. So it happens. It happens more often than gun control advocates and even the government would like to admit. I encourage you to go to the Crime Prevention Research Center, CPRC, I think. Look it up, Crime Prevention Research Center. John Lott there has done a lot of study on this and found numerous cases that the FBI basically refuses to acknowledge of concealed carry holders, regular citizens stopping mass shootings. So it happens. That's awesome. As I said, I'm a concealed carry advocate. Don't pretend every shooting here ends like that. No, every shooting doesn't. But some do, and some lives are saved. And I don't know what that number is. It's impossible to know what that number is. But Adam Kinzinger wants to get out there and just dump on the supposed right that he wants to pretend he supports. Don't buy it. He's a fraud. The other situation we had at Bondi Beach down there in Australia, apparently, is the similar ones we had to with Uvalde, Texas school shooting, and the Parkland school shooting. You had cops. Apparently there were several on scene, 4 policemen, and they're not firing back. Now, I'm not sure if these are like British policemen who don't carry firearms. Too many of them. No, they give that's special people that carry firearms. But, the way that the protests and stuff you've had, the rising anti-Semitism you've had in Australia as they have imported people from the Middle East, as that's been rising, you wonder why they didn't have more security. And why they didn't have security there, more police there, with firearms. I mean, you look at this picture here, and I don't see the guns. They could be up here. Usually they're on the waist. If you got a chest rig, you might have it on your chest. They don't have it there. I'm not sure that either of these people is armed. I just don't know. But again, it doesn't matter if you've got if you don't have a rifle, if all you've got is a handgun. You can keep them pinned down. Start shooting back. It gives people more time to escape. It gives your backup more time to get there. And you save people's lives. And this got a couple old sayings. When you need police right now, when seconds count, cops are minutes away, at best. Some places they're longer, though, farther away than that in both distance and time. You are your own first responder. So you had cops apparently not fighting back, not trying to pin them down, hiding like every other victim when, in theory, they should have guns. Don't know if they did, and if they didn't, I'll have some grace. You don't have to, if you're a cop and you're unarmed, well, you shouldn't be an unarmed cop, but it shouldn't require you to suicide, basically, by charging these guys. But when all you've got's a hammer in Australia, everything looks like a nail. Australia to tighten gun laws. That's another thing to note here. Look at these pictures. At least two on the left side of this guy don't appear to be carrying firearms. Really useful. Australian leaders promised Monday to immediately overhaul already tough gun control laws. At least 15 people died in the attack. Yeah. This is interesting from the article. Andrew Hemming, an expert in criminal law at the University of Southern Queensland, said Australia's gun laws have weakened since the Port Arthur incident, and not only has the number of licensed firearms increased to about 4 million, but so has the concentration of ownership to about 4 guns per person. Hemming said gun ownership is rising in urban areas. It's not always clear how thorough background checks really are, or whether checks are made to see if the licensed weapon has been modified. Hemming says it's his understanding that the deceased suspect held a license for 6 years with no issues. It's very difficult to stop an incident of this kind when apparently there were no red flags. Except there apparently were red flags. I think he's talking, the deceased suspect, that's the father. The son had been investigated by police there in 2019. Son was 24, so this would have been 6 years ago when he was 18, and they determined that he did not pose a threat at that point in time. Maybe I should have kept a closer eye on him, because he certainly did this past weekend. Australia's gun laws have disarmed people that weren't a problem. The criminals kept their guns. The criminals did not turn them in. And then you've got situations like this. And again, who's suffering here? The people whose rights were taken away. And so we didn't succeed in stopping these things when we took innocent people's rights away. Let's hit innocent people again. It's the old Monty Python sketch. For those of you who have not seen it, you should check out the Dead Bishop sketch. Basically, they find who's been killing bishops. And the guy says it's fair cop, which is the American equivalent of "you got me," but society is to blame. And then the police go and arrest everyone else except the person who did the shooting. Costas Moros, who's with the Second Amendment Foundation now, used to be with Michelle and Associates, points out, people say, Australia has, but this is far fewer shootings in Australia than there are in America, blah, blah, blah. Well, the numbers are different. People really fail to grasp population differences when comparing rare events. And I did this. This is true. And it's obviously true. Several years ago, I was on the Dave Congleton show, and we were talking about a shooting at the time. And I told him, it's like, we aren't that different. And it's true. We aren't that different than Europe and other countries when it comes to these sorts of terrorist event, public mass attacks. Our numbers get juiced a little because of gang violence between gangs, and sometimes that catches innocent people in the crossfire. But if you were to take out suicides and you were to take out gang violence, mass shooting incidents and the overall homicides are not too different between us and a lot of Europe. It's certainly better than Mexico. But this is something that you often see. It says, I'm already seeing some deflecting from Australia's mass shooting by arguing, well, this sort of attack is far more rare in Australia, so therefore gun control works. Indeed, they've had very few mass shootings since they cracked down on guns after the Port Arthur attack in the 90s. Let's take a look. We'll define mass shootings as Mother Jones does, Left Wing magazine. A shooting that leaves at least 3 dead but excludes gang violence or domestic violence. Since 2000, and again, they did these gun buybacks in the 90s. Australia has had 4 mass shootings that meet that criteria. As I've noted, I've excluded a variety of mass killings of a domestic nature. That'd be like murder, suicides in families, those sorts of things. And also shootings that fell just short of the 3 dead criteria, like the Monash University shooting of 2002 that left 2 dead and 5 injured. The United States in that same time frame has had 127 mass shootings. Wow, 4 versus 127. That must mean gun control totally works and the U.S. could solve mass shootings by copying Australia, right? No, you are forgetting population differences. We need to factor in the rate of these events. Australia has a population of 27.5 million people. The United States has a population of about 342 million people. We have 12.5 times as many people as Australia does. When we divide our mass shooting tally by 12.5 to account for that population difference, the difference is no longer 4 versus 127, it's about 4 versus 10. Australia does better than we do, but not by nearly as much as people think. By having over 300 million people, there are just many more opportunities for aberrant attacks like these to happen. And the news media gives them wide coverage each time, making them feel more common. But if we had an Australia-sized population, instead of happening a handful of times each year, they would happen about once every 2.5 years. And of course, Australia also had very few mass shootings before Port Arthur, too. And that gets glossed over. As today's attack proved by being the worst shooting since Port Arthur, as of the last count, 12 dead, now we're up to 16, I believe, and 29 injured. I think that number is 40. No matter how strict your laws, someone determined to carry out an attack will manage. Australia has also seen attacks by other methods, like a 2017 car attack that killed 6 and injured 27, and a 2011 arson attack that killed 11. Evil people will do evil things. Does a gun make it easier? Not sure if it's easier than a car attack. Drive down a crowded sidewalk in a marketplace or something like that. Arson attacks, same sort of thing. Charles C.W. Cook over at National Review makes a similar note. So the gun violence archive numbers you will see everywhere totally deranged conversations on mass shootings. Each year, the gun violence archive claims that in that year alone, there were 6 times more mass shootings than have happened in all American history, per FBI data, and the press prints it. Don't take my word for it. Here's anti-gun Mother Jones explaining the ruse. In the year it covered, the GVA claimed there had been 355 mass shootings. The actual number was 4. This lie, which is dutifully reprinted in the Times, meaning the New York Times, at CNN, by the BBC, and almost every international outlet, makes it impossible to have a normal conversation. It would be like debating taxes when everyone had been told the lowest rate was 3,000%. And it especially makes it impossible to have conversations about, say, Australia's laws, because the GVA misled people compare the actual numbers in that country to the completely fake, off by a factor of 90 numbers in the US. Pointless. I'm of the view that Australia's changes didn't do much at all, except possibly reduce suicides a little. There are actually twice as many guns in Australia now as there were in 2001, but it's hard to debate amidst a sea of statistical nonsense. You know all my views on these issues, but I've probably written and spoken a million words on it. But if you made it this far, whatever your view, please know that if you see the gun violence archive in a piece, you should ignore it and question the author's grasp of the topic. He's absolutely right. You'll also note that they'll show charts where after they pass this gun buyback in Australia, which was really a forced confiscation. The government never buys back guns because the government doesn't sell the guns in the first place. So it's a misnomer to call it a gun buyback. But they'll show you this, look how, gun crime tapered off after they passed those gun control laws in Australia. Well, if you go back before, you'll see it's a downward slope that basically the gun confiscation didn't change the trajectory that it was going on anyways. Port Arthur was an aberration. This was an aberration. It's tragic. And it's tragic that Jews in Australia will not be able to carry around guns to to protect themselves, because the government isn't. And yeah, we'll see what happens down there. But people determined to do evil are going to do evil, and you can't always stop them ahead of time. It's sad that we need more security around these events, and I think probably the most the thing that's going to come out about this as they look into it is how blinkered Australian security services, whether it's police or their equivalent of MI5 or MI6 or the FBI or whatever, how lackadaisical they were in understanding that they've got an anti-Semitism problem in their country, and you're going to have to protect the Jews. Be nice if you let them protect themselves, but you can't pretend that they're going to be able to protest peacefully or celebrate peacefully or do anything peacefully, because you've imported a problem. That's an immigration topic for another day. Thanks for watching this clip from the Hoystory On Air broadcast. I encourage you to follow me on Substack, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I want to thank you for your support, and please feel free to watch another video or 2 or 3.